Welcome to Hatton Jewellery Institute's next Fireside Chat. We are really lucky to be joined by Nomera of Nomera Jewellery, who actually was one of our former community members and also one of our teachers. She has since gone on to travel. I say gone on to travel. She kind of joined Hatton during her travels, and we were so lucky to have her as part of the community. She has since been living in Lisbon and is currently now back in the UK and is going to be joining us very shortly. Her background, as the title was a giveaway, was in fashion, and she has, for the last, I think it's 6 years, but she can correct us, has now been creating her own bespoke contemporary work and is going to be talking to us about that. So just waiting for her to join us. And here she is, or rather, here are her tools.
Just give me 1 second.
Welcome Nomera's tools. Well, I tell you what, that is
How
an
do I turn it around?
authentic jewelry angle. At least you know that you know she makes her own stuff.
Oh, there we go.
There
we go.
Oh,
Yeah.
that was one of those. Oh, my tools. Oh yeah. No, I make.
Those things.
I'm a craft person. Oh, Nomera, it's so great to be able to chat with you and to be able to kind of have I say this fireside chat.
Thank you for having me.
Quite literally now, and I'm literally sitting in an armchair.
Thank you for having me. No, it's a pleasure. It's been really nice being invited to this.
Well, it's in my very, very short intro, but obviously we'll kind of go to, didn't want to spoil taking away from obviously what you'll talk with us about anyway. That you did, you were part of the Hatton community in person, but forever part of the Hatton community globally, and that you joined us. You didn't go on traveling after joining us. You actually kind of joined us having started your travels, and we were kind of part of that. In Hong Kong was kind of part of that, but obviously you kind of were Kuwait, Hong Kong, Portugal. You know, travel has been a huge part, obviously, of your background. But jumping right in with it, really more kind of starting with your background in fashion and how you came to be a jeweler with a travel bug. And really kind of what took you from fashion into the jewelry world, and was it kind of an inevitability that you'd always wanted to take that path?
It kind of, well, yeah, I mean, it played a big part in my career. It's something I've always wanted to do from as far back as I can remember, and I just kind of went forth and pursued it the best I could. Jewelry was a part of it naturally because of the nature of the job that I had. It did cross paths a lot, with the styling side of it, looking, designing clothes that would sit alongside accessories and jewelry. So there was always that kind of awareness and interest, and in terms of like how to style an outfit, how to put it all together. So I think there was always elements of jewelry in there, but I never really thought about it as something I would really take up seriously and learn as a skill further down the line. It just wasn't on my radar in that sense. So yeah, it came a lot later, and when it did, it really hit hard, and it was something that intuition was like, yeah, this is kind of where I want to go moving forward. So yeah.
So when the drive towards jewelry kind of crept in the door, it didn't so much creep as it kind of barraged through and wouldn't let go.
Yeah, it was obviously a year before I moved to Hong Kong. It was brewing already, and my brain was just like.
Whilst you were in Kuwait, or?
No, I was in the UK at the time. And I was only here for a year, obviously looking into my next kind of phase or move in terms of job, which was still focused on fashion. But as I was doing that, simultaneously, this interest of jewelry kind of, seed got planted and it started stewing up, and I started exploring a bit more.
Yeah.
And initially it was pieces that I just made from things that I just had lying around. And it was more like upcycling mostly, and just things that I already had, objects that already existed that I could recreate into something amazing and cool. And like I was just kind of playing around and bouncing ideas around. And that led to a lot of like doing online research into jewelry in general. And I remember doing a lot of like bead work in the beginning, and like looking at how the African tribes would create all these amazing intricate patterns with the different colors of beads. And I kind of like, that's how it all really started. And then obviously metal wire got introduced into my work, and it really just kind of organically evolved, and my interest and curiosity kind of became deeper into, you know, silversmithing. And there was a video I remember watching that I just watched on repeat, because it was a jeweler that had just made a simple silver ring, and it was just all the tools and the process that just fascinated me. And I just had this urge to get into a studio and just sit with the tools and just get a feel with my hands, because as any creative person, I don't know, like I think maybe I'm just speaking for myself, I don't know, but you kind of sense, you see with your hands almost.
Completely,
like,
completely.
And I felt that I just had that urge to do that and see how that would feel. I'd always worked with fabrics, and they were very, like, you know, it was a different, again, still feeling with your hands, but just very different. And metals was different to me. It was very new. It was exciting. So yeah, I kind of thought, oh, maybe I should just get myself into a studio, just do a quick short class just to get a feel for it, and kind of give me an idea of where to start if it was something I wanted to pursue further. Unfortunately, that just never happened at the time in the area that I was living in, because there was nothing around me, which was quite frustrating, because I was like, I know what I want to do, but I just can't find it. And then eventually got offered a job in Hong Kong, which was, again, a fashion design job. So I kind of just packed all that into a box, put it to one side, and then just kind of thought, all right, let's just go back into the fashion world again. And it was then I got introduced to Hatton. I had a friend, a colleague, that I just had a, you know, casual conversation about wanting to learn how to make jewellery. Clearly it was still playing at the back of my mind, and then
the seed was there.
Yeah, it just got planted, and clearly it was something that was going to, you know, continue driving me forward. And yeah, and that's how I came to discover Hatton and yourself and the whole community. And yeah, it was the best thing that could have happened at that time. And you know, that was kind of a very big transition, where I was leaving the fashion world and entering the jewelry world. Quite turmoil at the time, as you know, as it kind of evolved. But looking back, it was definitely a positive and a blessing in itself, the fact that I kind of came into this industry. So yeah.
I remember your first class vividly, because apart from anything else, you obviously came with great creative ideas, whereas a lot of time when people start, I think obviously you need to kind of encourage their creativity out of them, whereas for you, your kind of creativity was kind of front and center. It was like, okay, my creativity's here, now give me the skills.
Yeah.
To this day, I think that's one of the most complicated first pieces we've ever made, with all those granulated balls around the fan. That also is one of the coolest pieces that I remember. But no, it was. I remember after your first class going, "Oh, I hope she comes back because she's really cool." But no, it's just yeah, I think it was clearly kind of a sort of a marriage of destiny. I think kind of jewelry definitely seemed like something that you were kind of was an inevitability, because you were so naturally kind of drawn to it and talented. But I think the from the kind of perspective then of where you kind of found your inspirations, you've always kind of had very powerful kind of inspirations in your pieces, in your collections. You've done some really, I know you've done some celebrity commissions, so even from not just your collection work, from the bespoke pieces as well, there's always been a really kind of interesting undertone that does that come from your fashion background, or have you kind of found like an independent source? I know independent source of inspiration is a contradiction in terms, but have you kind of found the way you're inspired when in creating jewelry has kind of evolved as you have kind of really become more and more experienced as a jeweler?
Yeah, I think there are some elements that I have carried through from, especially the design process, and how, I mean, designing, because I've always, in fashion, I've always designed for other brands. So there's always been a customer that was not created by me. It was something that I had to kind of understand and learn about the brand itself and then kind of, adapt to that. Um, but I've always had my own kind of style alongside it, like as any other creative person does, I guess, especially when you're working for another, brand as such. So I've always had that. But yeah, the methodology and mythology, is that the right word? Or the
Methodology.
process, that's the one, that's what I'm going for.
An
Or
ology
the
somewhere.
the ology, yeah. The process of how to get to an idea to a physical product, that I've definitely brought into my jewelry kind of world now. However, the inspirations, I think I just kind of go with whatever I feel strong about at the time, and that just could go in any direction, and there's endless amounts of, like, possibilities there. As where with my fashion, there was always like this following of trends, and seeing what everyone else is doing to kind of, and just kind of go along with that. So I guess for me to break free from that was quite liberating, and then just kind of go do whatever. Like I don't think I've barely looked at jewelry trends or studied it since I've been in the jewelry industry. I've just really gone with what I just wanted to do, and what appeals to me. Like, and I guess my aim is to create something that's just visually beautiful to the eye, and just someone that could just appreciate a beautiful object that's wearable. I think that's kind of where the baseline is with that idea.
I know. I'm so kind of in agreement that I think jewelry trends. I know there's a place for all of it, but I do find that the like jewelry trends as a crafts person, it just doesn't. It doesn't work because in terms of, yes, you're going to be influenced, but you're more likely to be influenced by world events that are inspiring or challenging you, or kind of questioning how you think, even down to the materials you use, rather than kind of being a trend driven, the Pantone color of the year type approach. So it's not fast fashion. But at the same time, I think nowadays more and more people kind of are, and I don't know if you agree, are kind of leaning towards, they don't want the trendiest. They want the most individual. So we're moving away from a society of people who want to be wearing the in thing that everyone else is wearing. We're kind of going the opposite way, where people want to be able to really have that experiential relationship with what they're wearing that actually is unique to them and represents them, rather than kind of 500 other people they might bump into on the high street.
Definitely. And I think it's definitely, that has become bigger and bigger over the years. Definitely big shift, and it's great to see that. I think it's exciting. I think it's exciting for a lot of, especially individual independent jewelers. It is. It's really good. I mean, not just jewelry, but fashion as well. I mean, there's so many people that are doing, lots of pockets of individual creatives that are coming up with some amazing, inspirational products, designs, and not necessarily following the.
But I think also, I think you hit like there people. Individuals, I think, not just in jewelry, in general. I mean, whether you're looking at anything from sort of social change to climate change, it's grassroots organizations. It's kind of from the ground up, when in the individuals and the small organizations and the collaborative organizations, that seems to be where so much change is really happening. And then the big corporates, the governmental kind of initiatives, all seem to follow the more sort of the grassroots led ideas. And it just feels like, from the perspective of, as you say, creativity, kind of sort of forward thinking, really kind of evolving past trend led directions, actually working as individuals, as creative collectives, is far more productive. But actually on that basis, obviously we got to know each other in Hatton, which is very much kind of community oriented. But then, you know, because you have traveled as much as you have done, but you've also, you know, you've traveled, and where I take my hat off to you, you've traveled on your own a lot. You've traveled, I know you've traveled with friends, but you've been able to really look at it from the perspective of, you know, you've allowed yourself to go where I don't say the wind take you, as it were, but have you, you know, in terms of finding that collective, finding that kind of creative home, you know, as individuals, equally, we don't want to become lonely. We don't want to become sort of isolated when we're working, which when you as a creative can be very easy to do. Have you been able to find those creative hubs that have really kind of helped you? And obviously most recently you've been in Lisbon. I don't know Lisbon at all. Is that somewhere that you found kind of creatively inspiring? Did you find the right kind of people? Obviously, basically I'm saying, were they lucky enough to get you, and did they appreciate you? If we lost you, did someone else appreciate you?
I mean, everywhere I've lived, yeah, I've always found kind of my creative vibe. And different places do affect you differently. However, yeah, that creativity, I guess, because you carry it within you, it's always with you. So in that sense, I think I've always had it. Externally, what surrounds you does change your moods, it inspires you, it doesn't, you know, so that is constantly shape shifting. I think I've moved around enough that I've been able to adapt and kind of focus on what does work for me in different locations, because every different place has different things to offer. And yeah, I guess that's kind of how I've worked it. Like, what works for me in a place, I'll make it work, and then what doesn't, I'll just move that to one side. In terms of communities, I think Hong Kong was obviously where I started first independently, in terms of my jewellery phase, and I was very, very lucky to have found Hatton and the community there and the friends and the people that I was surrounded by. Unfortunately, I've not found anything like it since I left, so I do miss it a lot. Lisbon is great. There's lots of creativity. However, I felt that it just wasn't recognized. I don't know whether it kind of crosses into like the way that the government don't really support creative hubs enough. I felt there was a big lack of it. That's not to say that
that's not what I'd expect there, because I'd imagine it'd be very kind of creatively minded, but so that's quite a surprise.
It is. There are so many individuals, but that's what it is. It's just individuals just kind of putting in their own sweat, blood, and tears into getting it.
So it's the grassroots showing the way for
exactly.
As well.
Yes. That's kind of that, and that's not to say, I mean, it's amazing to see the level of creativity there. It's just really sad to see it not being supported by bigger organizations.
I mean, on that basis, though, would you say that actually, if there were bigger organizations to support it, would there be the same drive for the individuals to actually be pushing to? So is it kind of a 6 of one, half dozen the other? I'm not saying, I'm not advocating for it. I'm just like, having now been in a place. Actually, technically, you've been in 2 places, because Hong Kong is not somewhere that is overly. It's not tripping up on itself to support grassroots creative organizations. And I kind of look at it and go, had I, when we started Hatton, had there been more available, would we have created Hatton the way that we did? Because so actually, is it a double-edged sword in that?
It is a bit. No, it is a bit. I see what you mean, and yeah, I think the difference I felt between Hong Kong and Lisbon was Hong Kong was very. I think individuals are very driven, and they are very hungry for moving forward. And making something. That's not to say, I'm not speaking for everybody Portugal, but I think just given the geographical location, the lifestyle, what Portugal has to offer, it is very laid back.
Different type of
Not bad.
energy.
Yeah, it is a very different type of energy. Like Hong Kong was very much like you're in a fast lane, which, you know,
Like
again,
go.
yeah, it can be great, but also too much of it is not good. It's like, you know, you need it in moderation. As where Portugal is great in terms of lifestyle and the sun and the food and the, you know, everyone's just happy, and it's just yeah, it's kind of like you're just living in a dream. But then when it comes to like making progress and, you know, getting exposure and moving forward and, like, you know, kind of the business aspect of it, the logistics of it lacks, I feel. And I think that's just, not that it's a bad thing again, but it's just, you know, it's a different pace of life.
It may be kind of going from Lisbon to Hong Kong might be, you know, kind of would be one, but going Hong Kong to Lisbon, it's kind of like you suddenly screech the brakes.
Yeah, pretty much. And that's kind of how I felt. And I felt like I wanted to kind of, it's almost like, yeah, in Hong Kong, you're kind of like running. Portugal, you're just kind of like strolling, but I kind of wanted to find that middle.
You want a brisk walk.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. And I wanted to kind of speed up a bit, but I just didn't feel externally it was there, that energy. And that was where I started getting a bit frustrated, and I thought, okay, how, and it was just simple. Like I remember just this one incident, a friend introduced me to a designer, fashion designer, and she, you know, she told me many times that he really admired my work, and I said, well, you're kind of in the middle, like, introduce us, maybe we could like have a conversation, and you know, and I kind of looked at his work. Yeah, like, let's just chat and see if anything can happen. I mean, I'd love to collaborate, or, you know, I'm jewelry, he's fashion, maybe we could, you know, come up with some ideas. And I'm just like constantly, like, I love having these conversations, I love surrounding myself with people like that. However, when it came to actually meeting up, it just kind of, you know, arranged the meeting, showed up, and he just completely, like, he just wasn't even there. And I was just like, how do you make an appointment and not remember that you had an appointment? And it's just, and these incidents would happen a lot. And I kind of thought, it's not, they're just very laid back, and they're just very chill, and they just like go with the flow. And for me, that was a bit like, like I need, it was, I felt it was a bit of a struggle for me in that sense. But other than that, I absolutely like loved my time there. So I guess, for that reason, I just never really clicked with a community, or, you know, people, because just not on the same wavelength, I guess. But I admired, you know, the level of their creativity, and there was just so much to take in, and so much inspiration. And it was really kind of amazing to spend time there. But I guess when it just came to knuckling down and getting the work done, I just felt like, okay,
need somewhere with a little bit more foot on the gas. So speaking of which,
I guess,
So now you're back in the UK. I can see your bed set up behind you.
Yes.
The obviously kind of have a, you know, sort of an eye on kind of Christmas. Do we have anything in the pipeline for Christmas? Do we have any pop-ups coming up that people can know about? Or
I'm currently, well, I kind of thought I'd take a bit of a break this Christmas. Seeing that I just moved here, I'm just kind of adjusting to new life.
You mean doing an exhibition at the same time as moving is not sort of in the same kind of remit of a brisk walk?
It could have been if I'd had my collection ready, but it's still not ready yet. So I'm in the middle of a new collection at the moment, and because of, you know, the transition in and just the logistics of moving from one country to another again, you know, all that kind of got sat on the back bench at the moment. So now that I am set up, the idea is to obviously get it up and running, and then finish off my new collection, and then hopefully get that introduced early next year. And then I mean, the nice thing about the UK is that there are a lot more options in terms of pop-ups throughout the year, not just towards Christmas. So my aim is to kind of just start from beginning of year and just dive in, basically.
That's a good way to start the new year. So, I mean, obviously there'll be, you know, sort of the new collection is under wraps, so I won't pry on that one. if I just want, if you were to kind of cast an eye over the work you've done to date, what would you have a favorite that you could kind of go, I just take my house off, I knocked that one out the park, or you just go,
Does that include ones that I've just designed and not made myself?
yeah, I
I don't
think
know. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. I think it would. Then I think it'd be the ruby ring that I did.
Oh
Cocktail,
yes,
the cocktail ring. So that
I
the
remember that.
ruby, it's kind of like a cylinder cut stone with like facets. And that, yeah, just the shape of the stone itself was very unusual when I did find it. And I, that it challenged me to think about how to set a stone that was an unusual cut. And again, I've always been fascinated by unusual cut stones, as well as the obviously traditional cut stones. But yeah, I think that would be.
I remember that. Well, have you got photos of that one?
I do, yeah, I have got
Excellent.
photos.
We're going to have to share that
Yes.
so that we can make sure that we can post that after the interview so that people
Oh,
can see that one. Speaking of the new collection, without giving too much away, Nikki is saying we're obviously everyone's saying Hong Kong missed you. Nikki's saying looking forward to the new collection from the UK, and Agnes is saying let us know when it comes out. Can we expect gems in it? It's going to have any unusual cuts in it, or are we going to be more sculptural metal, or are you saying nothing until it comes out?
sculptural metal, yes, because that's obviously where my
That's
strength
quite signature,
is.
yeah.
There will be pearls. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, ooh. Now that's a divert. Oh, that's a curveball. When we look, that it's going to be a pearly start to the year. All right, okay. I won't pry further. The no, that I know what it's like when people are like, oh, what's the new collection going to be like? You're going to find out when it's launched. But all right, so no, I remember that ruby piece was really special. It's kind of and it was technically challenging as well, which I think sometimes, and coming to as a craftswoman, and obviously speaking from my experience, I just I slightly projecting, but do you find that when because you can create your own pieces, do you find there's an ability to really evolve? I'm never one for designing at the bench in terms of letting the designs kind of make themselves up as they come. Like obviously go to the bench with a plan, but obviously when you have the ability to create your own pieces, actually then being able to troubleshoot technicalities can really help elevate the design. Do you find that your ability to make your own work a real kind of creative asset, as well as just obviously a practical one?
Definitely. I feel like understanding the technical is, for me personally, is essential for designing and growing in the design side. I mean, that's kind of where that's kind of where I'm very comfortable and secure and strong sitting in terms of the design side. However, the technical is what I wanted to learn when I first came to Hatton, because I was just itching to understand. And I think again that comes from fashion, when knowing, your technical, how a piece of garment, shapes and molds around a body, and the pieces, and how things are put together. How does fabric sit? How does it flow? How does it, how does it all kind of connect in relation to everything else? Like, it's so essential to understand the technical of any products that you design. So yeah, for me, learning how to do it firsthand is important. Whether I don't think for me it's something that I really want to deep dive into too much,
Yeah.
but keeping on top of it and just learning new skills and just understanding how things are done. Once I've done it with my hands, I'm like, okay, I get it now. And then I can like really push the design side. So, I mean, the ruby ring itself, like I remember when I had the idea and the design itself, I remember sitting at the bench in Hatton trying to attempt it. But because again, I was still learning and I was still quite new to, stone setting. I still feel I'm still new to stone setting, but it was so challenging for me. And yeah, I think I did about 3 attempts, and then I thought, okay, no, I'm not gonna, it's not gonna look as refined,
Yeah,
physically, as it is in my head. So I need someone else to help me do this.
Yeah.
And but it's important definitely to understand the technical, and I feel like it
Yeah, no,
helps
totally.
definitely.
But I think actually you really kind of hit the nail on the head there with a lot. I think a lot of people, when they're kind of approaching craftsmanship and wanting to learn, it's hard to kind of get the kind of the idea around actually, you know, having the knowledge can really aid your sort of design evolution, but it doesn't mean you are duty bound to then sit and craft every single piece and every element of every single piece, because you know, none of us are, you know, are specialists in all areas. As much as I'm very comfortable at the bench, I'm not a specialist gem setter, and I cannot do the setting the way a lot of my pieces demand. So I work with a diamond setter for a lot of my pieces. So you know, in that sense, you know, we all need to kind of rely on additional craftspeople, and I think that's, you know, it's an important aspect to kind of also be able to understand that it takes years to become a specialist in any one area.
Definitely.
So you can't be a specialist in all areas. But I mean, on that basis, are there any techniques that are still as yet undiscovered for you that you want to be able to try out, or just
stone setting is still on the radar. I mean, it's like you said, it is such a skill, and it takes years to kind of, you know, master. I'm still very much still on the surface, and it's something I still want to work more with. I mean, theoretically, I understand it, but it's more something I need to like really just sit at the bench and really have someone teach me how to actually do all the stone settings and kind of practice it over and over a number of times to actually really get a deeper technical understanding of it. So yeah, that's one. I don't know, is there any for now at the moment? Nothing else kind of comes to mind. Just continuing as I have been with the work that I've been doing, just with the metal itself, and you know, shaping, molding, kind of, you know, seeing.
Well, that's what I love about your work, because you use metal almost like it's clay. I mean, I know obviously you work with you work, you know, with wax a lot to create really sculptural forms, but I think that's, you know, you really look at it as something sculptural. I think a lot of the time, and again, particularly in Hong Kong, as we know, you know, it's very asset heavy when it comes to jewelry. People kind of see metal as basically something to hold gems, and if you can see metal there, therefore you've got more surface areas to put more gems on it. The idea that the metal itself can be kind of the focal point and the beautiful element is something that I mean, I imagine more so in Europe and the UK, but in terms, you know, it's something that is still more of a kind of I would say an enigma here, but that's what I really love about your work. You really approach it as this, you know, the fact that you can wear it is almost like a byproduct, but they're actually all small pieces of sculpture, which because for me, I always call jewelry wearable art, and yours literally are art pieces that you can wear.
Yeah, I use the words mini sculptures because they are that, and like you said with the wax, I do love working with wax a lot, and it literally does feel like I'm like sculpting miniature pieces. Literally, that is what it is. Yeah, and I love that. I love that concept. I love that idea, and I mean, yeah, it's like the possibilities are endless. So I still think I've got a lot to explore in that sense as well.
Don't we all? But that's the beauty about kind of being you know, in the kind of the craftsmanship arena, is that you've never gone, okay, I've learned everything, what next? There's always something else to learn, or there's always an ability to kind of continue to improve. So it's never a static career is the wrong, kind of like vocation, for want of a better word. But one thing, you know, I know kind of we kind of talk about inspiration and everything. One thing I kind of would, you know, to touch on before which we haven't had a chance to yet, is and in a way it's slightly kind of tying off the back of our previous interview with Stephanie, who obviously she's been very active in the Black Lives Matter community in terms of representation, being a female black engraver. You know, it's something that, you know, you and I have spoken about personally, just you are obviously female, you are obviously Southeast Asian origin in terms of all kind of your heritage. Just how do you feel from a representational perspective? And it's one of these, I feel I have to tread very carefully, obviously, given my experiences, my life experiences are very different, in terms of how you feel, the representation within the industry, both has affected you, hasn't affected you. It's I don't put words in your mouth, but I feel like we're at such a crossroads just in every part of the world. But the jewelry industry is so niche. I think sometimes niche industries kind of almost get a pass because it's a bit like, well, it's so small, it doesn't really count, because the kind of the minority kind of groups within that are so small, it doesn't, do we really need to worry? Whereas I think actually it's almost like the more niche, the more people should be represented, because especially within the creative arenas where, and again, slightly kind of touching on some of the conversations Steph and I were having in the previous Fireside chat, where actually when you're talking about creativity and it's talking about people's stories, you're representing people. It's so important that everyone's stories are represented. So just kind of wanted to get a kind of a sense of your perspective on it, because you're coming at it from a different angle. You've traveled and significantly, whether or not you found it has been a blessing, a curse, neither, both. Whether or not, some places have been more open, more adept, more agile, other places you feel like you've come up against a brick wall. Just kind of more of an open-ended perspective on that, given obviously your experiences.
Well, the traveling itself and the place I've been to have definitely been a blessing. It will always be a blessing. I've had varied experiences depending on where I've been, and every single one, if not positive, has been a learning curve. In terms of representation, it's something I never really thought about. For me, I was on a mission inside my head, and that was to get myself educated and follow a dream, a passion, that I know a lot of girls like myself, or young women, never get the opportunity to do. Even just looking at my mother, she never got the opportunity to get for even just a further education. I think that's what drove me to kind of just change that narrative, and not repeat the same pattern. I was lucky again, like to have found something that I was very passionate about at a young age, and my mum inspired me, and it's all the whole like kind of embroidery, stitching, dressmaking, all of that kind of happens in the home, and that's where girls belong, and that's kind of what I grew up with. Yeah. However, in my head, it was like, well, what if I took this idea, took it out of the house and started making money from it? Like that was the initial, like, what if I did that? Like, what if I just took it up another gear, sort of thing? And then I challenged that, and I kept challenging it, and I feel like I've been challenging that idea for a very long time. And it's only now or recently where I think the dust has just settled, and it's like, all right, and now I kind of feel like I'm not going to be questioned, or I'm not going to be judged, or I'm not going to, there's no kind of clash now. I'm actually it's just like kind of, the path's clear now, and I can just go. So I just wish I had what I had now then, like, and including the support as well, around family as such. So yeah, it's definitely, I think that is what's driven me. So coming into industries like fashion and jewelry, I don't think I was kind of really aware of what I don't think I even cared how I looked and how I was seen. Like, it just didn't
cross. Yeah.
No, it just wasn't on my radar, because I was just so like, this is the background I come from. I want to change that narrative, and I'm going to do that. And that's kind of where I was. However, recently, given the Black Lives Matter, I have sat and reflected a lot of my past experiences and questioned whether any of it occurred, like, how my journey did evolve. Was any of it, did it affect my choices subconsciously? Was I kind of, seen differently? Like, it's all starting to kind of, I'm really kind of sat and thinking about, did it actually affect my career? Like, and it's interesting how when I look back now, yeah, there were some occasions where I felt the way I look did affect other people's decisions, you know.
Mm.
And it's interesting now when I look back and I thought, oh wow, okay, so yeah, I guess the way I look does have an effect in an environment or in a, you know, how
Yeah.
people think as a group. And so yeah, maybe I could have had a more successful career if I hadn't looked like this. However, I just feel lucky that I just had the opportunities to even just step into the industry and just do what I could do. Of course, everybody, people that are driven and motivated, you know, they do thrive for more success and aren't able to, again, because of how they look and who, what kind of, you know, ethnicity they represent. However, I don't think it's impossible though. It's just, it
Yeah.
just means it's more of an uphill struggle. And that is a choice. Do you want to take that uphill struggle? Or do you not? And I think, you know, people that are thriving and bringing this awareness to a bigger audience are definitely the ones that have chosen to take that uphill struggle. And I would love to be part of that. And the more awareness I have of it, the more kind of fire I have inside of me to kind of, you know, get more involved in this and be a voice of, you know, of that group of people, small minority that are sharing it to a bigger audience. So yeah.
I just find it, you know, inspiring hearing you talk about it, because I think I know in previous conversations when you said the challenge, and forgive me if I'm kind of quoting you correctly here, like the challenge is a privilege because some people don't even get to experience the challenge. And I just think that's the kind of the magnanimity that you have in sharing that is, you know, when, you know, we see with the arts in general, you know, it's now becoming an ever increasing kind of slimmer margin of people who can afford to even get into an arts degree, let alone kind of take a 2-year unpaid internship, followed by, you know, the cost to, you know, set up your own business and with jewelry it's an exponentially higher cost. The actual bar to entry is quite significant, so it's kind of, it really is kind of becoming ever more designed for a very particular part of kind of society. And it just feels like, you know, it's, yes, there are hurdles, but just even with the challenges that you face, the fact that you kind of, you have this graciousness about the way that you have kind of overcome various hurdles, you know, in various different guises, but at the same time you say you kind of, to want, in terms of wanting to kind of join a conversation or wanting, I feel like you already are. I think your work is kind of so, in itself, it's so strong, it's so kind of powerful. I think that speaks for you, and in many respects. So I just, you know, again, that's my projection of kind of looking at your work, which I find really kind of impressive. And just the fact that knowing some of the inspirations that you've put into your work, which again come from really, you know, powerful influences. It's said, I find it inspiring as an observer. So yeah, I have no doubt that if you took whatever you took on, you would knock it out of the park. So I hope that you do use your voice for as loud as humanly possible, because people can't not listen. But anyway, I think on that note, I know you and I could go for hours, but we'll
I know.
kind of tie up there. But no, Nomera, thank you so much for joining us today. As we said, we'll share the pictures of the ruby ring, so people get a chance to kind of see the piece that you have mentioned. Equally, if you've got any behind the scenes of the evolution of that design, because that really was kind of such a cool piece, and any other pieces, we'll obviously share some previous collection pieces, and then as soon as the pearl collection is forthcoming in the new year, we'll make sure that people are aware of that and kind of share that. But in the meantime, just as much as we can't be with you in person, we will send you much love and creative Christmas hugs, and really look forward to at some point be able to catch up in person.
I hope so.
I'd say when the world returns to normal. I don't think that's whatever the new normal will be.
Yeah, and I just want to say thank you so much for inviting me to this. It's been great. You're always, I mean, to me, you've always been an inspiration, mentor, guide. And yeah, I'm just so grateful the fact that I had the opportunity to be at Hatton for the time that I was, and yeah, I would absolutely love to come back and visit, and yeah, I do think a lot about just coming back to the studio, just like to come and see everybody because I do miss
Well,
everyone.
you are much missed, but seeing your bench behind you is kind of incredibly gratifying. The fact that you've not long been back in the UK, yet I'm sure they'll from as a jeweler to a jeweler, your suitcase will still be unpacked, but it'll be packed in the corner, but the bench is ready to go.
The bench is ready to go. So yeah,
Priority.
I have everything dumped on there, but yeah, it's ready to go. So yeah, but yeah, you'll see more work coming. Definitely.
Look forward to it, and we all miss you and look forward to catching up soon. And then maybe when the new collection is launched, then maybe jump on, we can do another chat, a live chat, and then you can talk us through it, introduce us to it. Just sneak in there, we can get a little exclusive before it goes public.
That would be amazing. Would love to do that.
Awesome. All right.
Thank you
so much love, darling, and we look forward to catching up soon.
Take care.
Bye.